Hello, good evening, and welcome to our viewers on CVM TV and those of you watching online at CVMTV.com. This is Live at 7, Tuesday, July 16. I'm Simon Crosskill. This evening, we bring into focus Jamaica's killer roads, or is it more a case of Jamaica's dangerous drivers? We'll bring you the interesting results of a 10-year study about Jamaica's accident history. You can join the discussion by sending an email to live@7@cvmtv.com or live@7@gmail.com. Chat with us on Facebook, Live at 7 CVM TV, or send a tweet to live@7JA. The hashtag this evening is Crash Spots. All right, before we head down that road, let's find out what's happening now with Joel Crosskill.
Thank you, Simon. Happening now. Police in Italy have placed former 100-meter world record holder Asafa Powell, teammate Sharon Simpson, and their Canadian physical trainer Christopher Zureb under criminal investigation for allegedly violating Italy's doping laws. The move came a day after Italian police raided the hotel in northeastern Italy, where the athletes were staying, and confiscated several substances which they say are now being analyzed. The raid apparently took place based off of a tip from the World Anti-Doping Agency. Meanwhile, while it has been revealed that discus thrower Alison Randall was one of the 5 Jamaican athletes who tested positive at the Jamaican Championships last month, the identity of the remaining 2 positively tested athletes remains unknown. Also happening now. A day after the ban on smoking in designated public places came into effect, the health minister is putting Jamaicans on high alert that he will soon go after another unhealthy activity. Dr. Fenton Ferguson says there will be coming regulations for alcohol and unhealthy foods, and has described this next giant step in his fight to make Jamaica the health hub of the Caribbean. The new initiative towards a healthier lifestyle in Jamaica is something Dr. Fenton believes is long overdue.
Let us not believe that the other areas, the food and improper diet is not going to be on the agenda, because obesity is a major problem in our country, and diet is a major contributor to the disease profile. Alcohol, we are going to continue the dialogue, gentle persuasion, in the first instance to get some response and to get the message out and to get them to support healthy things.
And that's what's happening now. Healthy things. Back to you, Simon.
All right, thanks a lot, Joel. There's going to be so much more to talk about with the Minister of Health when he eventually comes here. Let's switch gears, literally. According to statistics from the National Road Safety Council, up to the end of June, there's been a 20% increase in fatal crashes compared to the same period last year. Already, 135 lives have been claimed on our national roads. The root cause in many of these accidents is speeding. But is speeding to be blamed for most of the accidents? Here are the results of an interesting study on crash mappings across Jamaica.
Died, and another was left nursing injuries in a traffic accident along the Bodles Main Road near Old Harbour in St. Catherine last night. The dead man has been identified as 63-year-old Liebert Cross of Spalding. Cross was the driver of a blue Toyota pickup van. Now, another man who was a passenger in the ill-fated vehicle survived the crash, which occurred shortly after 9 o'clock.
Between 2000 and 2012, 4,477 persons were killed during crashes on the island's roadways. However, truth be told, fatalities on Jamaica's roads amount to roughly 3% of all accidents. A comprehensive crash mapping report commissioned by Jamaica National General Insurance looked at accident trends across the island over an 11-year period, and the results may make you rethink your take on accidents in Jamaica. For example, contrary to popular belief, speeding is not the major cause of accidents in Jamaica. It's actually tailgating at almost 20%, followed by drivers failing to stay in their lane. However, speeding is the leading cause of fatal crashes. Fatal crashes account for just over 3% of all crashes reported, while property damage-only crashes accounted for the bulk of crashes, with nearly 73% of crashes. This is significant, with nearly 3 in every 4 crashes resulting in no injuries. The vast majority of crashes are directly caused by drivers, with more than 89% of crashes. Other drivers may also cause crashes, where a crash may result from another driver's actions and not directly from the primary driver. Pedestrians cause the next most number of crashes, with over 3,000, or over 4%, caused directly by pedestrian behavior, and not by a driver plowing into an innocent pedestrian. Most crashes happen in the day, and most crashes seem to happen on a Friday, with Mondays the next most popular day. Most road users, drivers and passengers alike, like to claim that public passenger vehicle drivers are among the worst of road users. However, they only account for 8% of total crashes. An examination of the parishes with the highest number of crashes sees St. Andrew leading the way over the 11-year period. However, most fatal crashes took place in St. Catherine over most of the period under review. Examining roads, it should then come as no surprise that the most number of crashes occur on Constant Spring Road, with 3 different segments falling in the top 5 most crash-prone roads. The Ocherius leg of the North Coast Highway is number 2 on the most crash list, while the Central Village leg of the Mandela Highway is number 4. But here's where things get interesting. Despite accounting for the most number of crashes, Constant Spring Road is not in the top 25 of road stretches with the most fatalities. That list is headed by the Runaway Bay stretch of the North Coast Highway. Number 2 on that list is the Caymanas leg of the Mandela Highway, and then the Rose Hall St. James stretch of the North Coast Highway. Old Harbour Road and the Central Village leg of the Mandela Highway round out the top 5 of the most fatal road stretches in Jamaica. And despite the less than favorable road conditions across the island, only the parish of St. Anne can claim that road conditions are a major contributor to crashes. But are the authorities using this detailed information to better plan a strategy in reducing road fatalities and accidents across the country?
All right, let's get even deeper into that study, and how can we get information off the paper and into policy, and more importantly into action, so that Jamaica's roads are safer for us all. Well, with me this evening, Dr. Parris Lyew-Ayee, who is the head at the Mona GeoInformatics Institute. We also have Paul Fletcher, who is the Executive Director, National Road Safety Council, and Orville Johnson, who is Executive Director of the Insurance Association of Jamaica. Welcome all. I remember as far back as about 1984, seeing a crash out in Montego Bay, just by Rose Hall, there, near the old house there. And I thought to myself, I wonder if anybody is going to come and do an assessment of this accident to determine whether you are likely to have more accidents at this spot in the future, because there's something wrong with this. And it's taken now, what are we now? 2013. And there is a 10-year study out that looks at some of these crashes. Have we been able to extrapolate from all the information gathered in this survey that there are hot spots, irrespective of how people drive, irrespective of how people behave behind the wheel?
And irrespective of a particular type of result. The number one crash hotspot in Jamaica can be determined many different ways depending on scale. Mm-hmm. The number one crash hotspot by road is right outside your studios here. There are crashes. The number one crash hotspot in terms of fatal crashes is in Runaway Bay. So there are 2 different ways of looking at it, and those are roads. In terms of communities, halfway tree as a community has the most number of crashes, whereas, again, Runaway Bay as a community has the most number of fatal crashes.
Right.
This is over the 10-year period.
All right. And in getting that information, are we able to tell why? For instance, that road in Runaway Bay, I don't know if it's changed in recent times, but it used to be very smooth. If wet, you could skid through to Monique. So is it, have we identified why that's an area, or why outside the studio is an area, apart from raised driving?
If I may, the Runaway Bay over the 10-year period has shown a fairly significant increase in crashes over the 10-year period. It's not the number one increase in fatal crashes over the 10-year period. The number one increase in fatal crashes over the 10-year period is Negril. Negril has had a significant increase in the number of crashes since 2000. Runaway Bay is number 3. One of the things you could easily attribute it is to the improvements along the North Coast Highway. Now, paradoxically, you create nice new roads without potholes, and these.
So we speed.
Exactly, and there are also concerns. There were concerns about the nature of the running surface with respect to the road being a little too slick in those areas, especially after rainfall.
Yes.
And these are conditions that. Couple that with speeding and bad driver attitudes, you're going to have a recipe for disaster.
All right. I would imagine that this study is of great importance to you. Is it going to help you to fashion, I guess, a campaign or an appeal to drivers based on the information you've garnered?
Oh, yes, that and more, because now we're drilling down. It's not just X amount of persons died over this period, X amount were injured if we can determine that. It's where it's happening. We're getting more into location, surface, and that sort of thing. So it's not only going to influence our campaigns, which is just one component of what we do, but policy.
But as well as policy, is it going to influence you, or is this material available to the police to maybe have their checkpoints around these areas where speeding, for instance, is the main cause of accidents there?
Oh yes, they are privy to this type of information, and this is the direction in which we are seeking to go more, to have the empirical basis for why we do what we do, because I think we have done the best that we can with what we have. So we have to now get some hard data, hard evidence as to what next steps that we need to put in place.
And again, I would imagine this is a boon for the insurance companies, although you do seem to have some strange policies where you don't insure people who live here, or you don't insure people from this parish, or you don't insure people who have this kind of car, which to me is absurd. But anyway, I am assuming this is going to help you in your forming your own insurance policies and so on.
Yes, actually, and as a matter of fact, the study has been financed by one of our member companies, MGI, and its parent company. So we have a vested interest in those things.
How does it manifest in an interest for the insurance companies?
Because we can better understand what is happening, where are the hot spots, and in fact, what MGI did, which is creditable, is to put up signs near the hot spots. So therefore, the motorists can be warned to be more careful when they go in that area.
Government duties abdicated there, but not a public.
Private-public partnership, right? That's a new word. Yes.
But does that mean, though, if somebody does live in a hot spot, or an area that is a hot spot, that they're likely to face a higher premium for living, say, in Runaway Bay?
Not at all. It has to be a situation where you are the person, you the driver, get involved in a number of accidents. Then we assess that kind of risk, and that will impact on you whether or not we charge you higher premiums, or say we just won't insure you at all.
I still have a problem with that thing. You deny me insurance. Or if I follow Mr. Radcliffe, you say that nobody should get a license until they're 25.
When we're paying out $8 billion a year in claims, you know, which sends up the premiums.
Right. You guys never ever tell me how much you're taking in revenue.
Oh, we take in about, it's about 60% of what we take in, and that is just the claims, you know. Okay. We haven't put in the other expenses.
I hear it. It's such a hard life for the insurance people.
It's difficult.
All right. Some things here that, again, that struck me, that in 72, I think 72,000 crashes were mapped between 2000 and 2010. at 5 different scales, parish roads, community, and time scales. And if I remember correctly, because I'd spoken to you about this survey, that there was a time period where you were more likely to be involved in a crash than any other time. And it struck me that it was something like, I don't know, somewhere between 6 and 8 or something like that, a strange time. What was it?
In the daytime.
In the daytime.
The reason is pretty simple. More cars, more people are out at that time. So you have more things to run into. You have more opportunity to get yourself into trouble and those types of things. You tend to have the fatal crashes, again, at a different time period. And again, it's a separation that we're really trying to emphasize here. And in terms of not to so much intrude on Orville's turf, it's something that we need to understand that even the non-fatal crashes, non-injurious crashes incur claims. And these types of, these patterns are very important beyond the life and limb part of it. It's the dollars and cents that's important as a business in the private sector.
It says here the pattern of crashes for PPV vehicles is broadly similar to the overall pattern. And in the feature we heard that whilst most people believe that taximen and buses are responsible for the crashes, that is a small amount. But it doesn't take into consideration that the taximan might cause me to crash because of some foolishness that he's done.
That's what we call the driver other crashes. In the case, for example, at nights when somebody is driving at you with their full beams on, you crash, he drives away, you are the one who's recorded. They get away completely free. In terms of the PPV pattern, the pattern we're talking about is where the crashes are occurring. The crashes are occurring along the same hotspots as everybody else. There's not a particular or unique hotspots for PPVs across Jamaica.
Okay.
And these guys are traveling along the same main roads as most people, and so on.
Okay. You've been aware of the results of this study for a little while, and I know you say you want to drive, excuse the pun, policy. What's been the response of the Transport Authority, the ministry, and so on to this kind of data? We hear the Minister of Health, by the time he's finished, all you can eat is a carrot. What's this ministry saying in response to these figures?
Well, they're all very supportive because as the National Road Safety Council, being the lead agency for road safety promotion in Jamaica, we have all those ministries and as well the private sector partners, NGOs. So when we speak about it, everybody's informed. And it was a minister, I think, who was at the launch of and the immediate response, I should say, was the science.
Right.
Right. So at least that was the very first thing.
But that was the insurance company driven. Aren't people going to be a little more concerned that this now should be driven by government and its various arms?
Everybody is seized with the importance of that, and even under the umbrella of the council, we are fully 150% supportive of that. We were aware of what was happening. Matter of fact, we sort of influenced in the early part the coming together because it's under our umbrella that the Road Safety Unit of the Ministry of Transport and Works made a connection through Earl Jarrett, who is a chairman, made representation to Parris's shop, and that's how the whole thing started. So there is full support.
We've got to take a break, but when I come back, I want to maybe see if you can tell me if we factor in things like bad tires, poor brakes, metal fatigue, that kind of thing when we work out why we have so many accidents. We'll be back after this break. All right, welcome back to Live at 7. We're talking about the issue of a study that was done, a 10-year study that tells us exactly why we have some of the crashes that we have here in Jamaica. Now, I think it was just in the news the other day, concerns about I guess it's fraud and so on, where vehicles are passed, vehicles are getting out onto the roads when in fact they are not roadworthy. Is there an element of the study that highlights the fact that the tires in this crash could have caused this crash, particularly up by Runaway Bay where it's slick, that the brakes weren't working or tail lights weren't working and so on?
Not directly tires, but we did do a pull of the data in terms of tires. We had something like 700 and something of the 72,000 crashes had tire-related causes. So tire blowout or something happened to the tire. And then we found about 700 and something of those. But you raise a broader point in terms of the issue of road safety analysis. The road safety is more than about the driver alone. There's the vehicle, there's the road. All of these components occur together for any type of crash or incident to occur. And the tire is one element in terms of the vehicle. But sometimes old vehicles versus new vehicles, SUVs versus compact cars. You have vehicles in good condition versus vehicles in bad condition. This is where you have enforcement and testing of vehicles to make sure that they're passed and roadworthy. That is separate and apart from licensing and making sure the driver is fit to be on the road. You have elements of pedestrians and pedestrian behavior, which is another critical element in terms of crashes occurring. You have road conditions. You have good road, bad road, fast road, not so fast road, pothole roads and not pothole roads. You also have other stuff, environmental stuff, cows and goats on the road, garbage piled up on the side of the road that gets into the drains get blocked when it rains, and you have flooded conditions. All of these result in a road safety condition that we have to be aware of, separate and apart from just the car or just the driver.
Sorry, if I could just add before you move though, that matter of tires, we don't, in terms of the accident booklet, it's still called accident booklet, we don't capture that information very well, simply because we have a very low standard in the current act. The current act actually says that a tire is deemed deficient if it goes to breaker strip. Now, you know, when a tire goes to breaker strip, that's the innards of the tire. Right. So we're not very good yet. So
would this help to form or to change that
No,
standard?
well, it's already in draft form in the new Road Traffic Act, which the ministers, the various ministers at Transport and Works have promised us we'll get within this fiscal year. We'll have an international tire standard, which I think is 1.6 millimeters. So then now when you go to test your car, they can be more vigilant. But right now they have a defective standard working with. So it reflects in how the data is collected to be analyzed.
Again, I'm thinking for insurance company purposes that you would want to know in relation to those 72,000 crashes, you want to know male, female, age group, so that you can formulate your policy structure accordingly.
You might not want to hear the fact that 80% of the persons involved are male.
Yes.
So
that really doesn't
we should start loading you a little bit more.
I thought you already did.
What is interesting that the data year over year shows that there's an increase on the female side, 30%.
I guess as more women drive.
More women drive.
Right.
But we've always had that type of data, though.
Yes.
We've always got gender, we've always got the age breakout, time of day.
And it's always been the man argument.
Oh, yes. It's traditionally been the 80%.
Even though we always...
in fatal crashes.
We always claim that you are the bad driver.
I don't know what that is based.
So that material has helped you already.
Yes, it has.
To understand what is going on our roads.
Although we also look at the data based on what has happened in terms of your particular company, your underwriting experience, that also drives the process as well. So we look at a number of factors. We look at age and all that kind of thing. Yes, we do. Yeah.
But this is an ongoing process, you know. Yes. They just did a band of years, and they're waiting now to catch up, to take it forward. So this is something we've started that will continue. Yeah. And so we're just excited about the whole thing. But it's driven
by this private-public partnership,
absolutely,
which is fine.
Yes.
But don't you ultimately want to see I don't know, a 5-year study done, carried out by the Transport Ministry to see what's actually happening
and I
in
think
our
that
roads.
will come, and one of the ways I think that will be reflected is when the ministry amends our national road safety policy. This type of information will certainly input to that. So, and then there are some bigger plans which we haven't really been speaking very publicly about
No, is it time?
yet. But there are discussions at a high enough level with the University of the West Indies, with Parris, spearheaded by our, I don't know what to call him, the godfather, the friend of road safety, the patron, the sponsor of road safety, Mr. Earl Jarrett.
Okay.
So what we're hoping to do is to be able to have a center which can serve the Caribbean,
Right.
which will begin to crunch the data in the very way that Parris is doing. So that's we're going to build in that function, so we'll have it ongoing,
Okay.
as well as other interventions.
I have to take another break because we have the Supreme Ventures draw coming up. But we'll be back with this interesting subject on Live at 7 in just a little while. All right, welcome back to Live at 7. We're looking at exactly what is going on the nation's roads in light of a 10-year crash study conducted by Dr. Parris Lyew-Ayee, head at the Mona GeoInformatics Institute. Whoa. We also have with us Paula Fletcher, who is the Executive Director of the National Road Safety Council, and Orville Johnson, Executive Director of Insurance Association of Jamaica. I don't know if it came out in the feature, maybe I didn't hear it, but where's the safest place to drive?
Anyway, that's not the bad places to drive. There are far, far more good places to drive than bad places to drive. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't think it was really to highlight the crash spots and just to improve those areas. I think one of the objectives of the study in terms of creating a baseline was to monitor the existing hotspots and then see how they're performing this year, last year, next year, and then see if there's been an effect in terms of the campaign. Unfortunately, there'll always be a next hotspot after this hotspot has been fixed or so on, but it's about surveillance and using data.
The other interesting aspect was, whilst speeding was responsible for the majority of fatalities, it was not the main reason for crashes in general. Tailgating accounts for nearly 20%. Followed by failing to stay in lane, nearly 10%. Speeding accounted for just 6%, which is
of the total crashes. What tailgating is essentially rear-end accidents.
Yeah.
You have failing to stay in your lane. You have people coming out of a side road improperly. None of these are speeding-related offenses. Not all the time, but they account for the bulk. And again, if nearly 75% of total crashes are non-injurious, it doesn't surprise us in terms of what's going on here. When you start to speed, the equation and the physics changes. So you have a very different set of rules to play with in those cases. But again, like I said, this is a cross-sectional study of every single crash, and speeding accounted for 6% of.
The thing I didn't see on the study, if there is, for instance, alcohol.
Yeah, alcohol was accounted for. Alcohol, drugs, and fatigue were counted as impaired driving. You have distracted driving when it comes to cell phones and other loud music blaring in the vehicle. Those are distracted driving. And then you just have reckless driving, which includes speeding, but improper overtaking is reckless driving. You don't have to necessarily be speeding to improperly overtake. If there's a line of traffic, everybody is 0 miles per hour, and you go 10 overtaking, you're still...
but we have, for instance, the police doing breathalyzer tests if you're involved in a major accident. But how do we know if alcohol is playing a significant role in the accidents that we have? Because I'm assuming that you wouldn't know unless a breathalyzer test was done.
Right, and therein lies the rub a bit, because even though the program is working in terms of the centers, I think they have about 20 centers up, and they do have their handheld devices, because that's the first line of testing. You blow, and if you go over a certain amount, then you go to what they call an intoxilyzer machine, which is an evidence-based machine. It will issue a paper that you can then take to the court. But I would admit that there are those, particularly if you die, you may not go to the hospital, you may go elsewhere. So you can breath test somebody who has died, and you will admit you will admit that a lot of persons die on the scene. So that group of persons would be outside of the statistics.
Right.
But some years ago, a study was done. I think it was Dr. Crandon who was involved with it, as well as Dr. Archie MacDonald. And they looked at a couple of hospitals. One I know included the University Hospital, where they have an accident and emergency center. And they saw a significant correlation between the use of alcohol and crashes. So it's something that we have to, this is perhaps when we have the institute, we do a more full-blown study, but it does factor in.
Yeah.
It does factor in. And we're saying we can't stop you from drinking, but you know, to drink and drive is, I mean, you know, it's not the right thing to do.
You mentioned signs that had been put up at certain crash spots, but there's a driving discipline that we seem to ignore in this country, and that involves lanes. And I get the feeling, because I'm always, if I'm trying to get somebody out of the lane that is used for overtaking, when I try to signal to them that, listen, this is the lane you should be in, you should only go in this lane if you're going to pass somebody, they look at me as if I'm speaking Spanish, which might be because the window is rolled up at the time, but the signs are there to tell them to move over. Do we need more signs simply telling people about lane discipline, about not blocking a four-way crossing and so on, in order to improve our conduct on the roads?
Well, in fact, I think one of the campaigns coming out soon, I think we are involved in that process along with the Road Safety Council and the Road Safety Unit. We are going to identify that on a video, the improper use of lanes, because it is a factor. And if you go back to the statistics that Parris has just outlined, in the number 2 category, you know, it correlates to the fact that it does contribute to crashes. And it perhaps is something that people forget after they learn the road code, or the other problem we have, we don't know how many people did the exam, and perhaps they don't know how to use the road. You know, you see that particularly in the dual carriageway. So we have to keep working on the awareness, and that's why the insurance industry is involved in campaigns like that, because it all helps to remind people.
I wonder how much of your intended effort is undermined by, and let's just call it what it is, corruption. We did I think it was last year, we did a piece on being able to buy a driver's license, being able to buy a fitness, and it's relatively easy. Now, if that is happening, that must be a worry for you, because it means you have really inexperienced drivers on the road. But it must be a worry for you as well, because it undermines what you're trying to do as a council.
Yes, it does. We really have no idea as to the gravity of it, but we do know that persons do manage to still buy their license. I know that both the past and the present head of the Island Traffic Authority, that is not something they support at all. But I think that agency needs to be enabled in terms of investing in systems and automation to better enable it to operate, to cut that out. And also, I think in terms of the driver's license itself, because that can be replicated, they need to have more, what are these things that you can identify, marks and barcodes, and I think they need to enhance those things in terms of the license.
And again, it's private-public sector partnership through the Fiscal Services Limited Insurance Company now is involved in validating driver's license, TRN numbers, and chassis numbers. So we are starting that process.
Because there's an element of fraud that affects you, isn't it? Bogus
it is in place, and it's going to be intensified. We're building data more and more, so we're able to identify these persons at the source.
Is there an element as well that, are there any figures that tell you like how many people might be involved in crashes who do not have a license? Not in that study.
We did a study though some years ago where we saw that persons who admitted that they bought their license, 12% of them were involved in fatal crashes.
12?
Yeah.
Sounds a little low.
It's a little low because, of course, the level of admission is...
What we know, though...
We have to, I'll ask you to hold that point because we have to take another break and then we'll be back in a little while. All right, welcome back to Live at 7. So then, let's find out what you have to think. Our question of the day was, what's the biggest cause of crashes in Jamaica? Driver negligence or road conditions? So on Facebook, some of the responses we got, Cecilia says driver negligence. Duanthony, road conditions. Denisha, driver negligence. Omar Flynn said road conditions in some parts, like the country where the road is very narrow, but you have a lot of careless driving as well. Kellogg King says that road conditions cannot be blamed because as drivers we should be aware of such, and we can do little or nothing to control such factors. So driver negligence can, however, be controlled as we are more than able to operate in a sensible manner to avoid accidents. And Chedi says, has to be driver negligence. The potholes, bad roads can't do anything. The driver does everything. Which really makes sense when you think about it, because if you're taking time on a road that is a bad road, then you still, you're in control. Well, speaking about roads, well, not quite. Let's head to the streets.
Both have contributed to it. Bad drivers and bad roads. If we learn and be disciplined enough to negotiate some of the bad roads, we would have worked out better.
Most of the drivers don't know how to drive on the road more carefully. They are too careless and they don't care. Most time you're crossing the road, they want to hit you down.
The drivers, because when you see you crossing the road, they tend to speed up on you, so they are the one who causing the accidents.
I'm in Kingston, and the more problem we have in Kingston now is bad driving, taxi, and coaster bus.
And really the road, Would I say the driver, because watch this, you can't drive on your phone. That's wrong. Enough time I drive and buy me for pass you, I see you on your phone and you could all hear something you enough to hear. What that costs.
So there you go. It seems like most people recognize that the drivers are the problem, that even if there are dodgy road conditions, you have to slow down and drive defensively, as you say. How do we get the message through to our road users? I mean, is it just going to have to be a campaign, an education campaign? Are we going to have to be more vigilant about who actually is allowed to go behind a wheel? We all like a little speed here and there, but what do we do?
Yeah, well, there are a number of things. We have to continue with the public education. I think with the Save 300 Lives program, where we sought to go below 300 fatalities, we finally achieved that in 2012, and the new program is below 240, which we hope to get to in 3 years. I think the public has been engaged. I think they're very savvy about the types of things that are expected of them as drivers. I think we have engaged them. I think where we have the disconnect is that enforcement depends on a police officer being on every corner. Crime is a big factor. We need to work a little smarter. We need to make the necessary investment in electronic surveillance. And when I talk about electronic surveillance, most people think of if you break a red light or if you speed, but it would also help Orville in the area he works in, because if you have sensors in the road, or if a policeman drives behind you with the type of technology that can do this sort of thing, it can tell you if the person is licensed, if their registration is paid up, if they're insured, if they have outstanding tickets, that sort of thing. And if we have a system where you enforce the behavior that is stated in law, it will make a difference. Because
that would also give the police the reason to stop and search as well.
I'm not getting into that with you. But I mean, the type of driving that we have in Jamaica, those of us, if we take the plane and we go across to wherever, we behave totally differently. Why? Because it's going to hit us in our pocket.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're more likely to get caught.
And your insurance premium may go up or will go up. And this is something that we're going to be concentrating more on, getting more data that we can use as a part of the underwriting
But
process.
isn't your problem, part of your problem, that if you use it as an inhibitor, for instance, so if you say, listen, if you've had 2 or 3 accidents, your premium is going to go up significantly, or if you drive stupidly, which might result in an accident, you're going to face a higher premium. Given our situation here in terms of lack of enforcement, aren't you just likely to have more people driving without insurance?
No, because after you go beyond a certain level, it's no insurance at all, so you can't drive, period. And on the other hand, one of the things that we're exploring, persons who, for instance, do a defensive driving course, and we work along with, every year with the Grinnell's Driving School to encourage defensive driving, and we're going to consider persons who, in fact, do the defensive driving course, that perhaps they get a rebate on their premium. So we want to operate on both levels. So some of these things are being discussed and they're being worked on, and it's a matter of time. For instance, I think that when young people, when parents get their youngsters get a driver's license, a defensive driving course should be a must for them, just to learn some of those elements before they go on.
Is there a gap between when you get your license to actually when you can drive a car?
No.
So once you, as soon as you get your driver's license, irrespective of your age, once you pass that test, you're qualified to drive?
Yes, as a matter of fact, if you go and you pay for a permit today, if you have a connection and you can get a date to drive for your license, you can be in the depot driving in another 2-3 weeks.
You've gone on the road, fine.
Right, and you have done the test. The new act will take care of all of that, because the thinking is that it will be more modular, the training. So you'd have perhaps videos that will show learners the impact of alcohol on driving, impact of speed. It actually states in the National Road Safety Policy of 2004 that defensive driving would be built into how we train our drivers. So all of this
as
here,
part of your driving
the curriculum, the whole program, and you know we're supposed to
driving
move
lessons,
to, You're supposed to be moving. We're supposed to be moving to having instructors that are certified. So they will have to be exposed to that and have a certain curriculum which they will then be able to impart to their students. So what we would expect the insurance companies to do, for instance, is if you have somebody who has been a habitual speeder, or somebody who drinks and drives and you have more than one offenses, whatever, that they would perhaps ask for retesting in that specific area and allow some perhaps waiving of an increase in premium, so that it becomes a win-win situation and you can get
carrot
people,
and stick.
Yeah.
What's the next survey? What are we going to be looking at next?
The connections between other variables, so ranging from road rage and psychology. You want to see the connection between road surface condition, materials, and so on, design connections. We also want to see the effectiveness of enforcement on bringing down the...
Well, help me out here. For instance, I've seen roads put down, and in a short while there's humps in them, which can create problems if you're driving along. When you come up with this data, are you going to be able to say to the minister and the
NWA?
Yeah, I don't like to mention the name, but the NWA, and say, what you're using here, our study shows that it's going to give you a problem in 3 months' time. Not that I suspect they don't already know.
No, exactly. They know because we share it. This is not a top secret type of exercise. I think because of the scales, and we started off by talking about scales of the data, this information can be broken down into road segments. Like, for example, Mandela Highway in the vicinity of Caymanas and Mandela Highway in the vicinity of Central Village are particular areas of concern, stretches of concern. Not so much Mandela Highway in the vicinity of 6 miles. So you're able to concentrate and focus your enforcement efforts, your maintenance efforts in these areas, and then see what's going on in those things. You can correlate that with data that NWA already collects in terms of traffic, in terms of usage and other types of pedestrian behavior, distractions and signs and other types of stuff that may go on alongside the roads.
All right, well, we have to leave it there. We have to get, I think, better used to now using data that's available before we make decisions and do all sorts of things. I want to thank you all for coming in.
Thank you so much for having me.
You know, the whole controversy about Peter Bunting's appearance in an American documentary got me thinking, is Dudusi only done in Jamaica? Now, we know he wasn't arrested or charged by police in Jamaica, a fact that still baffles me. But given that the Americans were able to gather info on Dudus and eventually convict and sentence him to 23 years, can he really be the only crime kingpin in Jamaica? Can each MP assure us that they don't have a Don operating in their constituency? In our garrison communities, is there no such person who's ruling with an iron fist, summoning young girls to deliver sexual favors, garnering votes for the dominant party of the area? How come Dudus was the only one? And even he was immune to Jamaican justice. What's the police force doing? We've had kingfish, etc., yet the big fish don't even get hooked. Is it that politicians owe their existence to these shadowy figures? Is Bruce Golding the only one to risk his political future to defend a Don's rights? Or are others doing so on a daily basis? I'm curious, is the constituency of the National Security Minister free of a controlling Don? Or the Minister of Finance, or even the Prime Minister? What about the opposition leader? Can he assure us that his constituency is Don-free? Can a Don rise to power without the blessing of an MP? Why, Dudus must be one salt dude, allowed to prosper by both parties, only to be undone when America intervenes. It's worth thinking about, isn't it? That's it for our program this evening. Thanks for watching. Coming up on Live at 7 on Wednesday, Jamaica, more than just sun, sea and sand. We'll be looking at community tourism. Are we headed in the right direction? That's it. Thanks to our guests this evening for coming in. Thanks to you for watching. And, of course, thanks to our hard-working production crew. I'm Simon Crossfield. Join me tomorrow, Live at 7.